So, quick intro. My name is Jay Chodagam. I am a meditation teacher in the San Francisco Bay Area. Uh, and I have been practicing meditation for 20 years. I lived as a monk in a monastery for 18 years. And my background, my training, my education is in science. So, what you will hear through the course of this session is a combination of just on my own journey, which is my interest in ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. And so this is how I understand, this is how I process, this is what I benefited from, this is what I'm going to share. So the agenda for today is going to be as follows. I'm going to start off with some breath work, pranayama exercises, followed by storytelling, which is one of the things that I know many of you come back for over and over again. And then I'm going to get into some tips and tricks and wisdom nuggets on how to really hack your life for happiness. So today's topic is around the lesson from little things, and it's about really creating a happy life. And then we're going to follow that up with a meditation to bring the theory that I discuss into practice. And then we will open it up for some Q&A. My first practice for today is let's all together collectively do an Om chant, and then I will take you into some deeper breathing exercises. So my fingers are in Vayu Mudra. So this is where I have my index finger touching the tip of my thumb. I have my arms rested on my lap, palms facing upwards, back straight. Eyes can be closed, it's optional, whatever you feel comfortable, but I'd like to keep mine closed. So I take in a deep breath into the belly. Together, let's release it with a chant of Om. Second round. And last Om chant. Just now regular breathing into the belly, breathing in for a count of 5, and exhaling through the mouth for a count of 5. Breathing in through the nostrils and exhaling from the mouth. Inhale from the nostrils. Exhale from the mouth. Continue this for a few more breaths. Okay, now we move on to the next exercise, Kapalbhati. Using the bottom of your diaphragm, I want you to please exhale using your abdomen to send out a thrust of air. You could call it a javelin breath. It comes out as a short burst. And I don't want you to be filling your chest. It's all abdominal work, diaphragmic work. And this is what I can go ahead and do the next one, where I can touch both the middle finger and the index finger to the tips of the thumb. I went over all of the energy centers in a previous session. You can watch the recording on my YouTube channel. But for now, for the simplicity, just keep it to this 2 fingers touching the tip of the thumb, taking a deep breath into the belly. And when I do it right, and just watch me for now, I'm not doing the actual set, just demonstration. Okay, so I'm using my belly to thrust the air out of the nostril. Mouth is closed. Everything else is steady. Everything else is stationary. And we are just doing breath work coming out as a sharp exhale. The focus is on the exhale. Don't worry about the inhale. Like all other things in life, when you know how to give, the universe will teach you, will give you back. So the focus is exclusively on the sharp exhale. So together, taking a deep breath into the belly, we do a round of 21, and we do 3 sets like that. Take a pause, take a break from the exercise, can continue the breathing regularly deep into the abdomen. Exhaling, taking a deep breath. 3/4 of a breath out, and let's begin the second round of 21. Taking a break from that exercise, just allowing regular breath in and out. This is a very powerful exercise for all the organs inside your abdomen. This is also a great exercise for tightening the muscles in your abdomen. If you want to have a flat tummy, this is just a fabulous exercise to do that. Very simple, you can do it at any time. Let's go in for the 3rd round of 21. Take a break. We're done with this set. Allowing regular breathing. So I'm going to give you instructions for the next round of exercise. So this is Jalandhar Bandha. So Jalandhar Bandha, Bandha, the word means holding. In pranayama exercises, the ancient yogis taught us how it's not just the following of the breath, but when you hold breath, when you manipulate breath, when you constrain breath, it has a lot of physiological and mental effects, positive effects for the body. So in this exercise, what you're going to do is at all times, you're going to keep your back straight. Your spine is going to be absolutely straight. We're going to breathe deep into the belly. Watch me first as I do this. Again, my fingers are in the mudra that I talked about earlier. Palms rested, palms facing up on my lap. Take a deep breath, and I turn my neck down to touch my chin to my chest, and then I hold. Okay? So that's what it's going to look like. I'm going to ask you to hold. I'm going to do the counting, so you just believe me and just hold with me. And if you feel like I'm holding for too long and, oh my God, you're not able to breathe, it's okay. Just go ahead and continue just breathing in the exhale, and then we will catch up when we finish this exercise together. Okay? So do as best as you can. There's no competition here. We're all trying to expand. We're trying to improve ourselves. We're going to pick up from where we are and improve upon it. Okay? So let's take a deep breath. At the top of the breath, hold. Chin touching the chest. If best as you can again. No competition here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale and come back up. Take a full cycle of breath in and out. And at the bottom of the exhale, hold. Empty lungs, hold, chin down. Round 2. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale and come back up. A full cycle of breath out and in. And let's do the third round at the top of the lungs. Full lungs, hold, chin down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale and come back up. Fantastic. Well done, folks. I know this is a little bit of a stretch of your lung capacity, your ability to hold your breath, but believe me, it's doing a lot of good for you. It's building your immunity. So what this does is, as we're learning to constrain, restrict, and hold our breath, we're building our immunity. We're actually allowing the body to take in more oxygen per breath into your arteries and into your bloodstream. It's also our ability to increase the capacity of the lungs as we're doing this breath work. So both the girth and the height of the lungs, both ways, longitudinally and laterally, you're increasing the capacity of your lungs to hold and to take in per inhalation more air. Fabulous. Now, let's go ahead and do one last exercise. This is called Bhramari. Bhramari is the buzzing bee, and this is how it works. If you're here for the first time in my session, I've done this many times before. So you use essentially 3 fingers. You're going to use the middle, the ring finger, and the thumb. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and use your thumb to seal the space in towards your eardrum. Okay? And then we will rotate the 2 other fingers and use the middle and the ring finger to close the eyes. Don't do it yet, because if you close it, you can't hear my instructions. Here's what we're going to do. With these orifices closed, completely sealed, you're going to go and take a deep breath in. And as you're breathing out, you're going to hum like a buzzing bee. So let the mouth be closed. You're going to allow a hum as you exhale. All right? So here's what it's going to look like. Breathing into my abdomen. So you see how you allow that hum to echo through the cavities in your space. It's a massage, it's an internal massage for all of your organs inside your head. All right, so we're going to do 3 rounds of it together. Now you're welcome to go ahead and start. Take your thumb, put it, rotate, close your eyes with your middle finger and ring finger together, taking a deep breath. Round 2. Third and the final round. Very good. You can lower your arms. If you want to keep your eyes closed as you just let this feeling soak in, allowing the sensations in your head, in your chest, in your abdomen, in your entire body be felt. Acknowledging what this few minutes of breath work has done for you. This is a way that you compensate for the times of the day when you hold your breath unknowingly. Sometimes when you're in surprise, when you're in awe, when you're thinking too much, we unintentionally hold our breath, depriving the body of the much needed oxygen. So this exercise is a way to compensate for those times, to make up for the lost life force, prana, which is life, ayama, which is the exercise. We are loving this breath of life, the breath of the universe, life itself to flow consciously through me, into me, and then through me outwards. It comes out as a beautiful expression of love. So take a moment to acknowledge this, to recognize this gift you've given yourself and what it has done for you. And as you do that, I welcome you to, at your own pace, if you had your eyes closed, open them up. Join me in the circle. And I welcome those of you who have just joined us. We just finished a set of pranayama, breathwork exercises. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to share with you a story and then follow that with some wisdom nuggets about some life hacking, happiness tricks and tips that are based on neuroscience. And then we'll do a collective meditation to bring those theoretical practices land them in our body and in our minds, followed by some Q&A. Okay, so this story today is from Japan. The year was 1869, and Japan had a massive earthquake in a certain part of the country. And what happens after many of these earthquakes is that there's followed by a massive tsunami, these huge waves, tidal waves that come and sweep. And not just the earthquake that destroyed that island, but the tsunami that followed in suit. It caused a lot of destruction. 11 centuries passed. In the 1960s, some scientists went to that same place where the tsunami had occurred and did a lot of research, studies around what are the potential implications of another earthquake hitting and then the subsequent tsunami that follows. And they did this study and came up with this inference that they're going to need to build a wall about 19 feet high. And so at that time, they determined that a wave that is 19 feet high was pretty much as big as it gets. And so they went ahead and built the wall, and then they built a nuclear reactor on this island, the same venue where the earthquake had happened in 1869, and they named it Fukushima Daiichi. 50 years passed. March 11th, 2011, a massive earthquake rattled that same place again. And as those scientists who had done the research had expected, a tsunami wave came and hit the wall. It wasn't very big of a wave, and so they were able to be saved. And so those scientists who did all those calculations probably would have been very proud of themselves that they had properly estimated the size of the ensuing wave, and they were saved. But that was not the end of the story. 8 minutes after the first wave, there was a second wave, an even bigger wave, an even more destructive wave. And this time, the wall was not big enough. It smashed against the wall, destroyed the wall, brought it down completely, and flooded the entire city, flooded the nuclear fuel complex. What that did was essentially it cut out the power grid. Without any power, the pumps that keep the nuclear reactor cool could not be revived. The engineers on site ran helter-skelter. They did everything that they could, but they knew if they could not revive the water pumps to keep the fuel, the core, cool, it was an impending disaster waiting to happen. What happened after that, many of you knew. Many of you know that there was one of the biggest nuclear disasters of our lifetimes. 164,000 people were asked to evacuate from that place. They were taken into small shelters, temporary shelters, nearby places, faraway places, into the cities, wherever they could accommodate them. Now, in that 164,000 evacuees, there was one couple, Mikio and Hamoko Watanabe. Mikio and Hamoko worked at a local chicken farm. And as you can imagine, nobody wanted to eat any chicken that came from a place that had been just struck with a nuclear disaster. And so the chicken farm came to a close. These people lost their jobs. They had nothing else to fend for. And so when there was the mandatory evacuation orders that were given, this couple followed everybody else, and then they were put into this temporary shelter far away in a small, dingy little place in a city. Now, Hamoko, who had raised 3 of her children, these people were married for 39 years up until that point. They loved their countryside living. They loved their simple way of life. They loved tending to their chickens, to their garden, to their farm, the little patch that they had outside their home. But now they were removed from all of that. And so a year had passed, and then there was the wife asked the husband and says, "Can we please go back to our home?" So they made a request to the government whether they could move back, and then the government said, they looked at the application and said, "You can go back, but only for one night." Yes, for one night. And so the couple happily came back to their farm. They looked at their land. The house is still intact. They decided to sleep the night there. The man went out and he saw that the grass in front of the house had gone up to the height of their man standing. And so he started to tend to cut the grass. The wife went in, just like in good old times. She started cooking, making dinner. They had a nice dinner together and they slept the night. They were so happy. The next morning, the man gets up again, goes back out to finish that unfinished cutting of the grass that he had left from the previous day. And then at a distance while he was working, he saw a little fire. And he assumed that was a fire that, from the grass from the previous day. Hamoko would have probably said that to kind of incinerate it and get rid of it. Only to find out later that his wife had doused herself in kerosene and set herself ablaze. Now, this was a story of a death that happened because of the tsunami, because of the nuclear disaster. But it is not when the disaster happened, but it was a year after the disaster happened. There was a lot of research that was done about these people who had these lingering effects of the actual disaster. So this is the hidden effects of the nuclear disaster. It's called the hidden deaths. And what happens is that there are these unidentifiable victims, people that you do not know could be the victims of this incident, but actually their life gets taken sometimes much later. And interestingly, it was not this one person was not the only one. There was the local researchers found there's 56 deaths, but then actually when the local news agency did a survey 3 years after the disaster had happened, there was 156 deaths that happened after the original death, the killing because of the nuclear disaster had occurred. Much more than the number of lives that actually were taken by the nuclear plant. Now, why am I sharing this story with you? If you understand the effects of what happens when a disaster like this strikes, when people are displaced, when lives are turned upside down, there's a greater psychological effect of it that lingers on. And interestingly, the maximum number of deaths that happened because of these people who took their lives subsequently, the 156 people, were not in the year of the disaster, were not a year late after that. It was actually in 2013, so 2 years after the earthquake happened and the ensuing catastrophe in the Fukushima power plant, that there were these suicides. Not only are they direct suicides that you can actually probably account for, but there were an uncountable number of people who were affected by obesity, diabetes, hypertension, just the stress of being completely dislocated from their natural habitat, from their loving families and homes and the conditions that they had built themselves up to retire in and grow old in and perhaps even leave this body. So folks, I tell you this story because we are living through one such disaster that we need to pay attention to. And I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but what I'm trying to point you to is the effects of this identifiable victim effect. These are the hidden deaths that come from not the pandemic itself, but because of the lingering side effects of the pandemic. These could be people who are affected by a loss of a loved one, loss of job, loss of uncertainty, loss of being able to have normal relationships that we have, as a human race, have evolved through millennia to be that social creature. Yes, one day we're all going to get back. Pretty soon we're going to get back into the state of normalcy. And as we get back to the state of normalcy, I ask that you inspect yourself. Look at what are some of the side effects, and this requires a certain amount of introspection, the ability to reflect and see very objectively, is there any lingering aftermath, any stresses, any side effects that it may be important for us to catch, realize, and transform it. First is to become aware of it. Second is to realize what is the cause and the effect, and then the transformation. Now, many of you who are joining me here today obviously have an inclination towards somatic practices, meditation techniques, etc. You perhaps have some inkling of how to help yourself to create more mental clarity and give yourself these well-being tips and tricks and create a sense of resilience. But I tell you, it's not just for yourself that I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to tell you to keep an eye out for people around you, the loved ones, your relatives, your neighbors, etc. Can you spot any effects in them that are still lingering much after the pandemic is gone? Now, here's the interesting thing that happened in Fukushima. Now, why was this disaster, where it took more lives 2 years after than actually at the incident when the disaster struck. It's very interesting psychology that when something like this happens, when a disaster happens, when there's something that there's a call to action, there's an attention, there's a focus, there's an alertness, and there is a movement. There is something that's kind of a response to the disaster that keeps us all busy and occupied. But what happens is after a point, that alertness, that attention, that busyness wanes, dies off. And then what you're left with is yourself and the influence that is still lingering from that event, whatever the event may be. So particularly, I'm asking you to keep an eye out, both on yourself and on your loved ones, for a couple of years at least, as we're going past, as we're navigating, as we're just about coming to the other side. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But I want you to please be aware of this identifiable victim effect, where you can see when somebody his life has been greatly altered, what are some of the things that could have a long-term effect that could result in taking one's own life, which is a very, very unfortunate thing, which is something that there's a lot of resources out there. You can call a suicide helpline, you can call for counseling, you can get the resources either for yourself or this person that you feel that needs it. Plenty of resources. The most important thing is that the victim needs to identify, needs to recognize that they're going through this thing. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the neuroscience, about coming out from this painting, this morbid picture. I want to give you some tips on how you deal with, how do you train your brain? How do you prepare yourself to create that sense of resilience? Now, there's a very interesting thing. So if you think about the evolution of the human brain, you must have heard about this fight and flight response, the amygdala, the most primitive part of the brain, which is at the back of your head. It's called, also referred to sometimes as the brain stem. So it's the most primitive, most ancient, it's the most fundamental part of the brain. And that part of the brain is responsible for fight, flight, and freeze response. Because if you think about it, as we humans were coming out of the caves and into the cities and into the malls, we had to survive those disasters, attacks from wild animals, natural disasters, right? And so when certain things happened, it was imperative for generations to remember that so that they could survive, they could use the lessons learned from that time that disaster struck. So the brain had found a way to put it capture it in a way that it does not allow itself to lose the lessons from it. Now, as I said, we've moved away from the forest, we've come down from the trees, we've come out of the caves, and we've moved into the malls, into very comfortable societies, safe neighborhoods. But guess what? That part of the brain still exists within us. So it is imperative that we start working on the more advanced executive functions, executive centers of the brain. And this is the part of the brain that is able to do things like foresee, time travel. It's the sandbox of the brain that can imagine how scenarios can be played out even before they actually happen. Now, the interesting thing about the brain is when you imagine something in your mind versus actually seeing it with your physical eyes. You must have heard of the word, the mind's eye. When you see something play out in your mind's eye versus these two physical eyes, the brain cannot tell the difference. So if we are indeed hardwired to remember the bad incidents, for example, even just look at the last 1 week, think about the person that you live with, your partner, your relative, your roommate, whoever the situation may be. Think about 5 things that happened that went off very well. Something that you were pleased with how it turned out. And then remember one thing that did not go so well. Something you're frustrated about, you were angry, you were upset, what have you. Think about 5 things that went off very well. Something that you were pleased with how it turned out. And then remember one thing that did not go so well. Something you're frustrated about, you were angry, you were upset, what have you. Something you're frustrated about, you were angry, you were upset, what have you. Notice when you go to sleep at night. Which one of these two sets of incidents are you more likely to replay in your mind? Yes, you guessed it right. It's the negative. So that's just the way that the brain works. Like I said, evolutionary, it has been the mechanism with which we were protected. But now, if we want to indeed move away from that grim, that sad, that fear-based mindset into one of positivity, of courage, of happiness, of love, etc., then it is important for us to notice those moments when we're experiencing those positive emotions and allow that to sink in. Allow that to sit such that it has a place inside our brain. We've moved away from the short-term buffer into the long-term memory. If you've seen this movie Inside Out, it's a very beautiful animated film that came out by Pixar a few years ago, where they talk about that. Sleep, meditation, reflection, these are all exercises that help you to take those short-term memory buffer items and move that into long-term memory. So I'm going to give you a very simple 4-step exercise and how you can deepen the positive experience so you can have a naturally happy mindset versus that one of fear, anxiety, or of pain. Okay, so here's the 4 steps, and I'm going to use the acronym HEAL. First, have a good experience, right? So that's the seed for everything. If you want to embed a positive memory, you want to deepen that, the first step is obviously to have a positive experience, noticing it, right? Second is enrich it. Take a moment, take 10 seconds, 20 seconds, take an hour if you have the luxury to do so. Try to sit and soak into that experience. Talk about it. So have the experience, enrich it, absorb it, replay it in your mind. Let it be replayed just like you have, the negative things that naturally replay. Make a conscious effort to replay such that these memories absorb into your subconscious mind, your long-term memory. And that the last one, the 4th letter, HEAL, link. Associate this good experience that you've just had with the person who was responsible for with the place, with the people, with yourself even. Link it and with something that did not go so well with that person, place, or people. So for example, when somebody did something with this person, place, or people that there was a not so pleasant experience that had happened some time ago, you're giving yourself a chance to rewrite that part of your memory, that association with this person, place, or people. Okay? So that 4-step acronym, I repeat it again. H, let that happen. Have the good experience. E, enrich it. That means by allowing it to spend more time thinking about it, letting it linger on, and then absorb it by replaying it in your mind. And then the 4th L is to link it. Link that pleasant moment, whether it's happiness, joy, love, courage, whatever it is, with the people and the place, such that you have a net positive image of that person, place, or people. All right, now let's jump right into a practice where we'll bring all of this theory into a somatic exercise where we'll allow it to sink into our hearts. I welcome you to keep your eyes open. If you do so, I just want you to please downshift your gaze, so you're welcome to completely close your eyes for the next few minutes. Let's sink into this exercise. We take in some deep, comfortable breaths into the abdomen, allowing the belly to expand and collapse. Just like when you see a baby sleeping very peacefully, you will notice the rise and the collapse of the abdomen. So allowing yourself to breathe nice and deep like this naturally relaxes your body. It slows down your heart rate. It reduces the blood pressure. Noticing the flow of air going in through the nostrils, filling your lungs, and the lungs are converting, transferring this oxygen into the bloodstream and nourishing your entire body with the much needed life force. And as you exhale, your body lets go of what it does not need, which comes out as a warm breath. Now, as you're beginning to slow down and your mind is becoming calm, I want you to travel back in memory lane. And I want you to remember an incident when you felt a deep sense of joy. It could be an incident from yesterday, from last month, or from 10 years ago. Pick any one incident where you experience the sense of joy, the joy of just being. And once you pick that incident, I want you to vividly replay that scene in your mind. Where were you? Who were you with? What was going on around you? And most importantly, how were you feeling at that moment? Feel it as if it was happening right now. You acknowledge this moment with a heart full of gratitude. Say thank you and let it go. Just let this experience go. Now, let's repeat that exercise another time. Find another incident, a moment when you felt the joy of just being. Play that scene in your mind as if it was happening right now and you're in the midst of it. Where are you? Who are you with? what is happening around you. And how do you feel right now? And with a heart full of gratitude for the people, the place, at that moment, we say thank you and let it go. Now notice inside yourself. Notice the pace of the thoughts in your mind right now. Notice the feeling in your body. Notice the ease of your breath. Notice for yourself how just with a few simple steps, within a few minutes, you can completely change how you feel. And this is not about escaping from our responsibilities and the difficulties and the pains that we need to deal with. But it's about the question of what is our predominant mindset. And the gift of little things. And the law of little things says that it's a bunch of little bad things that makes us feel bad. And it's also a bunch of little good things that takes us to a good place. And if you take care of the minutes, they will take care of the hours, the days, and the years. And the only minute that we have that we can tend to, that we have responsibility for, is that moment right now. This is the only thing that's in our control to shape who we are and what we become. We have absolutely no control to change the past or determine the future. And therefore, it's a present. It's a gift. The gift of this moment. And we stack with one moment, with another moment, and a few more moments that follow it, with this positivity, with this joy, and with a heart full of love. And we naturally wire our brain to be a joyful person, a loving being, and a positive thinker. There is a phrase in neuroscience that says neurons that fire together, wire together. So we're taking responsibility to wire our brains into becoming the person that we want to be. These passing mental traits become lasting neural traits. So the more we have this eye to recognize and to spot the goodness in and around us at every moment, we're creating a lasting neural trait, our habits, which then become our personalities. So let's bring our palms together at our heart center. And with a deep well of gratitude for everyone and everything that made this moment right now possible, let's create some beautiful chi, prana, by rubbing our palms together. Rubbing this energy vortex in our body, these two surfaces of the palm. And when you feel the warmth, when you feel that chi is generated, take that and put it on top of both of your eyes, cupping both your eyes with each palm. And bless yourself. May complete positivity reign in my mind. May health reign in my body. And well-being reign in my entire being. Now take those palms and now put them facing outwards towards the world. And think of some person, people, or place that needs this positivity, that needs this momentary joy, even if it's just a tiny spark. And as an act of compassion, let us send this good chi as a blessing to that person, people, or place. May their minds be filled with positivity. May their bodies be filled with health. And their entire being sense well-being. Bringing up arms together, palms at heart center. The deep bow of gratitude. We come back to the circle. We open our eyes at our own pace. And we recognize and acknowledge how we are feeling right now in this moment. And if you can share what you're feeling right now at this moment in one word, what would that be? I invite you to please share that one word in the chat. And as I see that coming up, I want to acknowledge your donations. It means a lot to me, and it's not just me, it supports my entire team. A beautiful bunch of folks from different parts of the world who support the audio, the video recordings, the social media channels, the website. And this is the source of income. I don't have another job. Inside Timer doesn't pay us, if you think they did. So your donations go a long way. So yes, I see a lot of beautiful expressions of joy, gratitude, joy-filled, committed, feeling full of positivity, peaceful, grounded, synchronicity, etc., etc. Some of you I know are deeply entrenched into my forgiveness, freedom and forgiveness course. There's 750 of you that have either are taking or have taken the course, and lots of great commentary on that. And I've just released a yoga nidra sleeping. Again, I think 2,000 of you have taken it in the last 1 week. Again, I'm just so grateful for all of these people, these lives that are being touched by something that I've learned. And I'm just so grateful that I have a venue, a platform to share all of this practice that I've learned as a monk for the last 18 years. And so let's see. How to forgive who gave bad experience. Chandu, go ahead and take my course, my friend. Take this course, Freedom and Forgiveness. It's a 10-day course, 10-part course. You can take it all in one day if you like, but I suggest that you don't do it all in one day, because after each lesson, there is an exercise. In each lesson, there is an exercise towards the last part of it. And those exercises are very profound. And sometimes you need a lot of time to be able to deliberate, to very consciously go through each of those steps and do it the way it is intended. And sometimes lots of emotions are going to come up, but it's important. You can't keep hiding the hurt from the doctor. You need to allow it. You need to be able to expose it. You need to be having the courage and the vulnerability to be able to show it, let that light shine on it. And when you do, you have a chance to heal it. So it's not easy work. Please take the course. It's right here on this platform. It's called Freedom in Forgiveness course. Okay, so Nalini, who's my mother, she's asking a question from India. How do you differentiate between little and big things? This reminds me of Mother Teresa's very famous quote. She said, there are no big things. There's only little things done with a lot of love. There's only little things that are done with a big heart. So, Mom, there's no big things, little things. We can only do little things. Everything that we do are actually little things, right? A tiny step for man, a giant leap for mankind. The famous words of Neil Armstrong as he was about to set foot on the moon. It was not him, but it was the entire human race that evolved to that point. So for him, it was a tiny step, but think about all the supporting characters, all of the supporting moments in history that made that moment possible for that little step to be taken. So we take little steps, but then we acknowledge that we are standing on the shoulder of giants that have made this moment possible. Great question. So let's see. This concept of single tasking blows my mind as I always multitask. Any tips on how to focus on single tasking, Linda? Great question. It is a practice that I have very painfully, it was not easy for me. As I sat down, as I mentioned to you a few times already during this talk, that I developed a practice 20 years ago, and I lived in an ashram for 18 years. And in the ashram, we had these days of silence, not hours of silence, not half a days of silence, but it was days of silence. And in that, it was an aspect of allowing oneself to just be, to acknowledge how much we have strayed away from this pleasure of doing nothing. And I say doing nothing, but actually we are doing something very precious, which is we're becoming very focused on this present moment. So it's called present moment awareness. Isness is the result of it. And it's a deep sense of joy that comes from completely focusing your attention on that one thing. And that one thing could be your breath, it could be on the third eye, it could be the bottom of the spine, it could be something on the wall, okay? Whatever that thing is. But that concentration leads to a great sense of joy. And I tell you, there's no greater joy that one gets than being completely focused on something. There's a word in Sanskrit, there's a word in Hindi for that. It's called ekagrata. Ekagrata, which means ek, which means one. Complete, astute focus on that one thing. And it comes with practice. But the thing is to take time to create circumstances, to give yourself the opportunity to get into that state where you will not allow other things to stray you, to distract you, to take you away. Now, the important thing there is distractions will come up, thoughts will come up. So we talked about, I was asking you to do this beautiful practice right now of think about those joyful moments. Well, raise of hands, how many of you had distracting thoughts about not so pleasant moments with those people, place, or person? Okay, I'm sure there's several of you. Now, the thing to do at that time when that distracting thoughts, that thing that comes to sabotage that experience that you're trying to create, that focus that you're trying to have, is very important. Acknowledging that the distracting thought has occurred, telling it I will come back to it, and going about focusing on that practice that you've embarked on. And having the discipline, taking the responsibility that when you're done with this practice, for however length of time it requires, going back and finishing that job that you're put on pause. Do you get it? That's how you train your brain to focus, to become ekagra. And then that focus, that attention that you develop by this practice that I've just taught you, you can take it into cooking, you can take it into learning piano, learning Chinese, becoming a great mom or a dad, drawing a beautiful piece of art. It is the same skill. What scientists refer to as being in the flow. You're completely absorbed in that one thing, and everything else could be in complete chaos around you. It doesn't bother you because you've developed this muscle. It's for you to keep. It'll serve you at the time when you need it the most. But like anything else, it requires dedication, determination, and practice. I'm new to meditation and I cry almost every time I meditate. Any thoughts? Wow. Maybe. Well, first of all, I acknowledge your courage to ask this question openly and your vulnerability to expose yourself in that very soft side of you, and that moment of exposure that you are bringing to that part that you don't understand. I acknowledge your courage to put this out in front of everybody. So, like anything else, maybe just like we get scratches, wounds, burns, hurts on our physical body, right? So when we see that on our physical body, what happens is through our childhood, from the time we were born, most likely there was somebody around us, whether it was a parent, an elder, a grandmother, a teacher, somebody in the community that picked us up and helped us to understand how to deal with that hurt, whatever that case may be, cut, bruise, wound, burn, etc. What we haven't been taught is the cuts, bruise, wounds, and burns inside our psyche, which is, I'm talking about the emotional hurts. So guess what has happened? You have tucked away, buried them. There was scab tissue that has formed on that. You avoided it because you didn't know how to resolve it. Nobody taught you. It was not talked about in your living room, household, dinner table, etc. Most likely, I'm not going to project my explanation on your family, but very likely, this is what I hear in 90% of the people that I talk to around the world. They have so little skills that was imparted to us, was inherited from the families in terms of dealing with psychological hurts and pains and suffering. So as a result of it, when something is not healed, untended, guess what? It is still festers, it's still a wound. So we have learned to ignore it, avoid it, and protect carefully, put it away so that nobody comes and scratches it, nobody's going to come and hurt it, nobody's going to come and tickle it, etc. So that has lingered and lingered and lingered until you came to a meditation session, whether it's a recording, whether it was a live session like you're doing right now, or you went to a retreat. And something in that conversation, that guidance, that information that was imparted to you during this experience took you to that place, that soft corner that you had hidden away for so long. And guess what? It's coming up. You're seeing it. You're acknowledging it. You're reliving that experience. And sometimes in the early process of your meditation practice, you still don't have the tools. So I talked about the heal, H-E-A-L today. Now what if I just did the meditation and I didn't teach you that? So what would happen is that you would feel it, it comes up, emotions would overflow, and you'd walk away wondering, why am I feeling like that? First of all, I want to say that is natural. That should be expected. That's completely okay. Now the second step is, how do you take that vision, that recollection, going to that place that has been so long avoided, and how do you heal it? And hopefully I've given you some tips. Obviously this is a lot more work than the simple 4-step acronym that I've just laid out in front of you. So I invite you to please allow these hurts, pains, these wounds, these burns, these scratches to rise up, because that is the beginning. Acknowledging, seeing them for what they are, is the first step towards healing them. And know that you're supported. Know that you're in the community of beautiful loved ones. Know that there are other people on the journey with you. And with a proper guide, you will see that you will come to a point where the meditations will no longer trigger you. Instead, that actually be reinforcing the positive, reinforcing that beautiful, happy, loving mindset that we talked about early on in this session. Okay, folks, so I know we've kind of gone well over, and I'm going to take one more question before we wrap. Let's see. I listen to your sleep meditations almost every night, so a donation is the least I can do. Oh, thank you so much, Sherry. Both of us mean a lot, but the fact that you listen to it every night. Now, Sherry, I don't know if you know this, that many people on this, even on this session today, they wake up to my meditation. I've had that wake up to an amazing day meditation for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years at this point. And I know people, there's a whole beautiful bunch of you around the world who wake up to it every single day. So Sherry, I might add that to your quiver. So as much as this Yoga Nidra that you just found is putting you to sleep, please consider the other one. That actually is very powerful too. It's my daily practice of how I wake up every morning. So I'm going to leave you with that. How do you forgive? So I talked about this one, the bad experiences, Chandu. I've addressed it. So good. So seems like I caught a lot of the questions. I hopefully have, because I don't know if some questions drifted away far into oblivion high up on the chat. I didn't dig so far inside for me to know that there is a question, but I think I've kind of told you that if there was a question, I wanted you to repost it. That way I could go ahead and address it. Ursula is asking, is the morning meditation on Insight Timer or on YouTube? Both, Ursula. It's both. So I have, like I told you, I have a fantastic video person down in Barranquilla, Colombia, who does the visuals, and he puts music behind my tracks. And so he produced the video, which I posted on my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called youtube.com/jchodagam, or you can just do a Google search, J Chodagam, and then it'll pop up my Insight Timer link, my YouTube link, my website, and I ask that you please sign up to my newsletter, because that's just a great way for me to talk about upcoming events. And I'm not just talking about virtual events, but I'm thinking of putting on a retreat July 4th weekend, which is Independence Day here in America, and just kind of slowly getting back into the outer world, and how better to do it than to come into an embrace, hugs, and huddling around a fireplace with kindred spirit. It's going to happen here in Northern California in a place called Marin County, not very far from where I live, but I just wanted to make it just kind of an easy way. Yes, there's all of you wonderful folks around the world who are become part of my soul tribe in the last 1 year, but I had to start somewhere. And eventually, maybe I'll come to a retreat center near you. But for now, let's start with something that's close to where I am, and it's just going to be 18 people. So I've already started receiving emails, by the way, for people, reaching out to me saying, "Hey, I want to register," and so on. So let's see, Christine is asking, you later, do we write it down? I don't know what you mean. So just Google this. Just Google my name, Jay Chodagam, and you'll find all my YouTube link, my Insight Timer videos, audios, and then also, oh, so you had a comment above. Okay, let me see what that is. So when we are focused and on task, that thought comes, we say, we see you later on, good to write it down and be distracted then. Well, so yeah, I didn't talk about, maybe write it down. I don't know. Yeah, so like, for example, I'll tell you one thing, that some of my most profound ahas, my greatest epiphanies come when I do my long meditation. So I actually take a pen and paper next to me, sit down with it, because what happens is I have this amazing thoughts about this production of this new, that whether it's a retreat or whether it's an article I'm supposed to write, or whether it's need to reach out to this person that I haven't reached out to. And like I said earlier, that's the importance of reaching out to people when if they come across the screen of your mind. So I write it down. So I do, and then I go back into my meditation, and actually, to me, that is so much more positive, because I can go back to meditation, go deep into it, rather than having the fear, what if I forget this epiphany that I've just had? That kind of that annoying feeling of, oh my God, what if I forget? What if I, can't remember? It was such a profound, realization. So it's good to write it down. So that's okay to be distracted for that 5-10 seconds, but then spend the next hour being completely focused. Yeah. You're welcome, Christine. Thank you all for my soul tribe, for being present. You're a gift to the world. Thank you, Sieglinde, for those kind words. Insight Timer just reached out to me literally 3 days ago, and they want me to be a mentor, where I'll be doing one-on-one coaching on this platform. So I'm working out. I had a meeting with one of the beautiful ladies at Insight Timer yesterday. We're going to be working out the terms and conditions, and I gave them a lot of feedback around their system is so new. It's just in beta, so they're trying to work it all out, and they're taking feedback from people like teachers like me. And I just want to make sure that it is going to be something that's going to really support people at different stages of their journey. So that's coming up pretty soon, exciting. And like I said, retreat coming up. There's a lot of corporate events. So companies are reaching out to me, asking me to do stress reduction at work. And more recently, a bank reached out, a very large bank in America. They want me to talk about diversity and inclusion. Connection and inclusion is such a big thing in this country, and I guess in other parts of the world. Every day we're seeing lynching, shooting, killing, beating. I mean, who would have imagined a city like San Francisco, one of the most diverse communities, it's a sanctuary city, for God's sake. And we see downtown, broad daylight, beating an old woman. I don't know what pleasure these people get. Anyway, so all of that to say, there's work to be done, conversations to be had. We cannot keep just tucking this under the carpet and pretending as if kumbaya, everything is okay. These are hard conversations, and that's so I feel like taking this to the corporations is actually a beautiful place to start, because energy flows from top to bottom. Things start with leaders, and corporations play such a big role in shaping the economy and shaping the general psyche and what's important to us. So I think this is incredible work. And then Insight Timer is also asking me to work with their corporate division to take my message to the companies, and I think it's a great opportunity. I feel like if the time has come, now is the time. We need to start having these dialogues and make this upfront and center living room conversations. So here's my hope when I take it to whether it's you folks or whether I take it to companies, whatever the case may be. I want this to for you to please, like I said earlier when I talked about the depression that comes as a result of the pandemic, you to be responsible, share this with people that you feel are vulnerable. And when I mean vulnerable, this could be dependence on you, could be people who don't necessarily seek these somatic exercises, these kind of these well-being techniques that you're learning from this session here today. So then it becomes our responsibility to have these discussions at our Thanksgiving dinner, at our Christmas dinner, just at a family gatherings, at dinner table tonight, such that children or other people who are in your midst are starting to think about this and reflect on what are their feelings, those emotions. And like Mehdi asked that question, those long-term hurts that have been avoided, that have been tucked away, that have been just ignored just because of a lack of tools. So as much as all of this wisdom and techniques are important to you, please remember, energy flows. Everything, the river always take this analogy, everything's energy, and river is a beautiful metaphor for energy. You can't take it and hold it. You're going to start stinking. You're going to start becoming a place that nobody can, I mean, you're not going to get any benefit out of it. Its stagnation does not help anybody. So let it flow, folks. Find ways in which you can share this with other people. Find ways in which you can inspire other people to become best versions of themselves, to reflect on what their journey is. Okay? Put it in your own language. I know that you have a relationship with them that I don't. So please put it in your own language how you can make a difference to them. But the point is, let the energy flow. I hope you stay strong, go spread your light, and be well.